So the spoilers to chapter 19 of Boruto Vortex is finally here, and let's just say that Team 7 is getting destroyed by RYU. And we also have Konohamaru being on his way to reunite with Hiruzen, and also Boruto to the rescue. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course, let's start from the top. So the person on the cover for this month is Moegi, and the title is Konohamaru, which is funny since he's barely in the chapter, but the subtitle is Within Slumber, the Shadow Yearns, which somewhat implies that the person within the tree, or the person that has been treeified or treed to some extent, is somewhat conscious, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Now it then says that the chapter begins with a flashback of Kid Shinki, Araya, and Yodo with Gaara, and it's about his blade. Now we did get a peek into the chapter that shows this interaction where we have Araya saying at least a little, pay some attention to Yodo too. And Shinki goes on to say that goes for you too. Whenever you open your mouth, it's always about Yodo. And the next panel of course shows Araya thinking about Yodo. Now this somewhat implies that there's some romantic feelings going on here, which would be consistent with the theme going on with Boruto at this point in time. Everyone is in love with someone, and that's integral to the plot. And I will say, if you guys watch my video on the Matrix and its comparison to Boruto, love is an emotion these entities do not understand, and it informs why they don't understand the why, which leads to multiple things happening, including Momoshiki not understanding why Boruto persevered even after losing everything, quote unquote. So this does tie into the entire Matrix comparison, but if you guys want to watch the full video that goes in depth, it's on the channel, so you guys can watch it after this one. And it also somewhat ties into what Boruto has to do later on in this chapter as well, so we're gonna get to that part soon. Now it then goes on to say, back to present time, we have Araya uses his blade to dissipate the iron sand from Mitsuki, which frees him and allows him to join with Sarada. It then says that RYU gets serious and attacks them with a lot of iron sand, but Araya counterattacks this with his blade, dissipating it. Iron sand then appears from below and behind them, so Araya uses his blade once again. Now this does seem like Araya is the MVP of this fight, which was kind of hinted at the end of, chapter 18, so he's basically carrying everything. Now it then says that Sarada uses Katan on RYU, but he defends against it using his iron sand. It then says that SM Mitsuki, which is Sage Mode Mitsuki, it seems that Mitsuki is just very comfortable. This dude is really just spamming Sage Mode in every situation, so it doesn't seem to negatively affect him as it did in part 1. But it says here that Mitsuki uses the snakes to appear from behind him and manage to hold RYU in place so he can attack him. It then says that Mitsuki attacks RYU with his snakes, which might be similar to what he tried to do with Boruto, but he evades the attack by turning himself into iron sand. Now this is a bit crazy. I'm not sure if this is substitution jutsu, because you're able to substitute certain things with yourself. It's the same thing when Mitsuki turns into snakes and stuff, or is it transformation jutsu, because this seems a bit OP. But it then goes on to say Araya uses his blade to counter this, which shows the extent to which he can nullify Ryu's abilities. So he pretty much forces the iron sand to join together again, reforming Ryu's body. And thinking back, this reminds me of, what's his name again? Yeah, Suigetsu's ability, which allows him to transform into water. And it's of course tied to his Kekkei, which of course would make sense for Ryu since iron sand is his Kekkei as well. So it seems like Ryu is just way more overpowered than Shinki, because Shinki never used this ability to our knowledge. Maybe TBV Shinki did, but we haven't seen it. Now then says that SM Mitsuki manages to land an attack, and Sarada finally activates her Sharingan and uses Chidori on Ryu's body. It then says that Ryu turned into iron sand again, and the Chidori wasn't enough to take him down, which is insane since of course iron sand is weak to lightning, and Chidori of course is lightning. So if you can tank a Chidori, there's nothing else in Sarada's or Mitsuki's arsenal that would be able to take him down. It's just GG's. Now maybe if Sarada learned how to do Kirin or some different lightning jutsu aside from Chidori, then that might have been effective, and who knows, maybe she has, and we might see that in the upcoming chapters. But let's continue. Now it then says back to Matsuri and Konohamaru. So it says here that we see Ada watching and saying Konohamaru is in trouble, saying he can get devoured at any moment. Boruto and Kashinkochi then asks about Sarada and the others against Ryu. Ada then says that they've managed to hold their ground, but Konohamaru is in trouble, And it's so funny, it seems like she says to them that Konohamaru is in trouble and they're like, okay, but what's going on with Sarada? So she's like, yo, I just told you that Konohamaru is in trouble. What about Konohamaru? She's like going back to him again. So I'm not saying they don't care about Konohamaru. Of course they do. I'm just saying, you know, Sarada is Boruto's priority. And there's a reason why, we're going to discuss that soon. Now, it goes on to say that Boruto seems to want to join, but Kashin Koji tells him, nope. And of course, this goes back to what was said in the prior chapter, that if Boruto helps them, he will die, because Juro, of course, will sense him and then arrive at the location. And of course, the reason why Koji is saying this is because he has seen it. Now, the reason why I said this is important is because it also goes back to the Matrix stuff, and you guys should definitely watch that video if you guys haven't watched it already, because there's this thing that happened in the Matrix where Neo was given the choice to save humanity or save Trinity by the Architect. And the Architect is kind of mirrored in Kashin Koji as well, where he was aware of all the possibilities that Neo could choose. And because love was a part of this calculation, he knew that Neo might choose to save Trinity over humanity, which he ended up doing. And we might see a case where Boruto does the same thing, where he was told by Kashin Koji that if he does help them, he will die, which will of course lead to the death of the planet, because of course once they have an Otsutsuki, they can absorb the essence of the planet. But even still, Boruto will try to save Sarada because he loves her. So that's why I say, guys, if you guys really want to see all the similarities, because Boruto is heavily influenced by the Matrix as confirmed by Ikimoto, you guys can go watch that video on screen. But yeah, and also guys, the memberships are now live, so if you guys want to join the membership program, you guys can go to the homepage and hit the join button. I would really appreciate the support. But let's get back to the spoilers. Now it then says back to the Shinju dimension. So we see Jura, Hidari, and Bug talking about them and love, blah 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 blah. So he's just saying that they're having a long conversation about the concept of love, which again goes back to the Matrix and all that lovely stuff. You guys will understand that connection to Momoshiki and all that stuff as well, which is why Boruto didn't lose everything. So get into that video, you guys will understand. But yeah, it then says there's more Matsuri, Konohamaru, and Shinju talk. It then says back to the fight. So RYU again uses his blade to counter RYU's ability to turn himself into iron sand. RYU's body then formed and summoned Claw Grimes from his clothing, which of course we know they're able to do. It then says here that Sage Mode Mitsuki uses his snakes and Sarada uses Katan to attack the Claw Grimes, but there are too many of them. So these guys are getting swamped by Claw Grimes. They have RYU there that is overpowered, and they're about to lose. So Yodo is in danger, of course, and I said this from the prior chapters. So it says here that Yodo is in danger from the Claw Grimes biting her, so Araya uses his blade to attack it, but fails to cut it completely and getting stuck. It then goes on to say that RYU uses this opportunity to get rid of Araya's blade by teleporting the Claw Grime that was pretty much holding on to it. So now they don't possess Araya's Deus Ex Machina blade to counter Ryu's Iron Sand anymore, so they're in big trouble. What can happen next? Who knows? Someone has to save them, right? Who's that person? Obviously, Boruto. But yeah, it goes on to say back to Konohamaru and Matsuri. Matsuri says it's time to become one, Konohamaru-chan, and that's where the chapter ends. So as I said, Konohamaru is barely in the chapter, but the title of the chapter is Konohamaru for some reason. Now this might be because the Shinjus and Jura were discussing Konohamaru and the love between Matsuri and him, so that might be the reason why he's the title despite not being on the cover. Now there is also something interesting on the cover as well. It has some trees in the background for Moegi. Now this could just be hinting towards the fact that Moegi is now a tree, but also it could be hinting towards the fact that she has wood release. Now I think the former makes the most sense, but of course I just wanted to list the possibilities because I've gotten a few comments about it. But yeah, that's it for the spoilers, guys. Of course, this is just the text leaks because we don't really get the images anymore. But of course, we might get the full summary of the chapter where we have the dialogues between the characters. And if that comes out today, I might put out a video tomorrow that goes in depth on that. But we'll see what happens. With that said, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Boruto will save them? Or do you think Sarada might step up to the plate and awaken her Mangekyo Sharingan If that does happen in this chapter against someone not named Hidari, would you guys be okay with it, or do you guys think it would be much better for Sarada to awaken the Mangekyo in a fight against Hidari, which is of course Sasuke's clone? I do think thematically that would be a better approach, but either way would be fine, to be honest. But yeah, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.